Welcome, everyone, to our inaugural Women's Day panel. International Women's Day is today, and our panel, and we were discussing this in the back, have decided that it's International Women's Month. We're owning it, ladies. Come on. My name is Pat Perrier, and I'm the PR chair of the Zonta Club of the Joliet area. It is my honor to introduce the women on our panel and our moderator. Each of these women brings their particular expertise to our event, and they don't know it, but they are committed to the Zonta mission to build a better world for women and girls. Our aim tonight is to educate and empower you, our participants, the people who will see this later on the tape when we post it on social media, and the broadcast on JCTV. We want you to know that there are services available in our community. Our topics are tough: bullying, domestic violence, human trafficking. We welcome your questions. This is audience participation. So we could talk for hours on this. This panel, you all are going to be amazed, but we want your questions, so please feel free. I'll be running around with the microphone. And we hope that the information that you hear will be of benefit. On behalf of the Zonta Club of the Joliet area, I am proud to introduce to you our panel. Sherry Blackburn, Kate Edrin, Zoe Fisher, Senator Meg Lochran-Keppel, Dr. Cassandra Ma, Betty Major Rose, Tricia McKenna, and our moderator, Bonnie Winfrey. Welcome, everyone. And as I read your bios, just kind of, wave and let folks know who you are. Sherry Blackburn currently serves as the Deputy Chief of the Joliet Police Department's Administrations Division. She's been with the department for approximately 24 years before becoming the first female Deputy Chief. She achieved the rank of Sergeant and Lieutenant. Through Deputy Chief Blackburn's career, she served in specialized units in the department, building her expertise. Kate Edrin. As the communications manager for Zonta International, Kate finds innovative and traditional ways to promote the mission of Zonta, which includes expanding education for women and girls, ending gender-based violence, and eliminating child marriage. She also helps communicate the benefits of being part of the global Zonta International community, and she's been a member of Zonta for 11 years. Zoe Fisher is the lead preventionist in the Sexual Assault Service Center, a program at Guardian Angel Community Services. She currently works to prevent sexual violence by educating the community on topics including sexual abuse, rape culture, systems of privilege and oppression, trauma, bullying, body safety, and building healthy relationships. As lead preventionist, she's helped expand prevention education services and improve outreach to the underserved populations, including those incarcerated, those who are Spanish-speaking, and the LGBTQIA+ survivors. State Senator Meg Lochran-Keppel represents Illinois' 49th District, which encompasses communities in Will and Kendall counties. She joined the Illinois Senate in December 2020. Prior to serving, she was a special education teacher and continues to dedicate her work to being a voice for children. She's currently a member of the Plainfield-Shorewood Chamber of Commerce and the Romeoville Chamber of Commerce. I did not have enough tea today. Dr. Cassandra Ma is the founder and executive director of Reclaim 13, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing healing services to survivors of sexual abuse, trafficking, and exploitation. Reclaim 13 began in 2012. Dr. Ma and Reclaim 13 have been recognized by the Office of the U.S. Attorneys for the Northern District of Illinois for their work with victims of child sex trafficking. Betty Major Rose is an ordained minister, author, and founder of Parents Against Gangs and the Family Trauma Advocacy Program. Its primary objective is to aid homicide survivors and guide families toward a healthy recovery. In 2022, she published her book, Shattered But Not Broken, an intimate guide through her own journeys with clear-eyed advice and open-hearted support for those who've also been impacted by life-altering losses. Tricia McKenna is the Chief of Complaints for the Will County State's Attorney's Office. She has been an Assistant State's Attorney since 2006 and presently supervises felony charging decisions, narcotics, organized crime, and a homicide review team. She has tried numerous cases involving violence against women, including homicides. And our moderator. Dr. Bonnie Winfrey is the CEO of Kalin and Kyler Enterprises. She is a media and public relations executive marketing consultant, a freelance newspaper reporter, and an award-winning producer-director. As a communication and media strategist, she coaches individuals and businesses on how to build their brand and perfect their presence in the business and media world. She was also honored to be chosen as a 3-time judge for the Emmys. She is the current president of the Zonta Club of the Joliet area. Welcome, panelists, and over to you, Bonnie.
Thank you so much, Pat. Let's give her a hand. I am proud to say that this is International Women's Day, and this is our panel for 2024. It's our first ever, and it's also Women's History Month. And let's just celebrate women in our lives. We have mothers and sisters and wives and just different friends, and we can just say that females are great. Let's give ourselves a hand. And thank you, men, for that applause, too. You know what? This has been something that we've been working on for a while. And Zonta, we always say no to violence. And it's been particularly dear to my heart because I had an incident in my family last January where my niece was brutally murdered and shot in the head and then shot in the chest. And this is somebody I really, really love. And her 2-year-old baby was in the back seat and witnessed the whole thing. And we say no to violence. I say no to violence. She said no to violence. She said no to the person who was the person who killed her. And what this panel is all about today is we're going to look and examine crime. It's escalating like crazy. And we all need to say no, but we need to know how to say no. So we have the experts here. So I just want you to sit back and listen. You'll have a chance to ask questions. But right now, when you have, and you're just blessed to have so many gifted people in the room, you kind of want to know their why. Why are they doing the things that they're doing? So on my right, we're going to go ahead and start with Deputy Chief Sherry Blackburn.
No pressure. Can you hear me? Is this on? I'm good. Okay. My name is Sherry Blackburn. I've been with the Joliet Police Department for about almost 24 years. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. I was born in Harvey, pretty much raised in Markham. So blue collar area. Always had a sense of hard work and grit. Blue collar growing up. Both my parents worked. So I knew what it was like to kind of be independent, myself and my brother. I was always in awe of police officers. When I would see them, I never had a bad experience. I didn't have too many experiences, but I didn't have a bad experience. The pride that they had when they wore their uniform, and when we needed something, they would come and help. So I always thought that was great. I was competitive. I played sports all the way growing up, all the way on to college. I played college sports. Growing up, that's that sense of belonging to something. I appreciated that, and it was hard work. So probably already had set me up wanting to serve my community. So went through junior college. I went on to a small college in Missouri where I played basketball on a scholarship. My parents didn't have a whole lot of money, so it was either get a scholarship and play, or I would have a big loan. So I worked hard, was able to get my degree there. I got out of college and went on to work in retail. Something was missing. I loved retail because I was helping people, whether it was through answering questions or doing something for them. I was missing something. So I knew that I wanted to do something more, and I was always interested in being a police officer. So I started testing. I ended up getting hired with the Joliet Police Department. Started my career in September 2000 and never looked back. I've earned the rank of I was officer. I've worked as a field training officer, field training sergeant, field training coordinator. I tested for lieutenant. In the midst of that, I ended up getting married, and we have 2 lovely children. I've been with my spouse for 20 years and married for 10. So I have a freshman and a 7th grader. So a little bit of so on how it is to juggle kids and work. I was missing something. I was never a great student. So I thought, well, let me go back to school and get my master's. Well, great idea. What do? You want to make sure your family's on board with it. So I included my kids. Yay, go do it, Mom. To my spouse, couple questions. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes. So I did it. Earned my master's in 2020. Right after that, I was promoted to lieutenant. And then 2021 of January, I was given the opportunity. Would you like to become the first deputy chief? Went home, talked to my spouse, my kids. This is what you want to do. We support you. So I went for it. So I've been there for 3 years. I love going to work. I love serving the community. I love being a mentor for our women. Hired, I was one of 8. Now we have 39 women in our department. So I'll say that there has been a significant increase over the past couple of years, and that's through recruitment. You have to see it in order to be it. So you've got to get out there, and you've got to attract qualified, diverse applicants to want to do this job. It's the best job in the department, or it's the best job, I feel, serving your public, being there for people, helping people can't help themselves. That's what it's about.
Okay, Kate, thank you.
So I can really connect with the just idea of wanting to serve. I grew up with a mom and a sister who were highly involved within Girl Scouts. And it really wasn't a choice if I continued on in Girl Scouts or not. And after a while, I thought, okay, I really like this. I really like what I can do for my community. I really like what I can do with my fellow Scouts and how we're always there for each other. We started off just as people, and we became friends. And as I grew up, and as I thought, what do I really want to do with my life? I feel like I manifested it. Just like you, I was in a job. I was missing something. I needed something more. I did social media, and so I was up hours on end looking at tweets, and it just wasn't cutting it anymore. And so finally I said, I want to work for a nonprofit that empowers women. I had not heard of Zonta. I didn't know at the time that their tagline was empowering women worldwide through service and advocacy. So I thought this, I found it, and I landed the job. And it was one of the most empowering things for myself, because when I became manager, I came in as a lower coordinator, and I worked my way up. And I was surrounded by women who truly cared inside the headquarters office and outside. It is truly an honor and a privilege to sit here with the Zonta Club of Joliet, because I know for a fact how much you do for your community, because I'm the person behind the computer. I'm really not used to sitting on this side of the camera or holding the microphone. I'm used to taking the pictures, looking at the stories and hearing them. And that really comes all back to my why. with you, you got to see these things within your community, and it's amazing. You get to see how you can make a difference right away. And with my work, I get to see these stories from all across the world and how we're all connected in the best ways possible, and unfortunately the worst. So I know for a fact that every single action that Zonshans take, that every single woman who's in any club and the men who back them, we cannot forget the men, because if we're only building a better world, we can't just do it for one gender. We have to do it for both. And if we start with women, we will make sure that the men will be taken care of too, because that's what women do, right? We take care. So that is my why. I'm here to care. I'm here to serve. And I'm here to empower and back every single person who wants to build a better world.
Thank you. Zoe?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Zoe. I work for the Sexual Assault Service Center. Specifically, I am a prevention educator, so I get to do a lot of the fun stuff out in the community, doing presentations, talking directly with people. And I think that that really relates to my why. My educational background is in psychology. I have worked in a variety of settings already in a short career, all with traumatized people, right? I've worked in some prisons and jail populations. Even still today, I work with groups in jail and prison. Now I work with sexual assault survivors primarily. But across all of the experience that I've been fortunate enough to have, the why continues to be that I just appreciate connecting with people. And I think that that is truly our strength as humans and as women, right? Is that we can connect with each other when we are trying to think about how to build a better world, right? For ourselves and others. It's through these connections. It's through just sitting with somebody and strategizing and thinking with them. And so I'm so honored to be a part of this panel today. I think this is our why, right? We're here to connect.
That's great. Thank you. Senator Capel.
Hello? Oh, there we go.
You're there.
So I'm Senator Meg Lochran-Capel. I actually grew up in the Joliet area. I've been pretty much a lifelong member of Will County. My family, I have generations that have been here. So I'm pretty vested in the community. And I think just out of that and just being brought up in this area, it's all about service. We love to serve, we love to connect, and we love to be a part of the community. So that kind of is the reason why I became a special education teacher. I did that for a while. I also decided, I had gotten my master's degree, decided that I wanted to change some things, and kind of, to everyone else's point, that there was something more that I wanted to do. Like, I was happy in my job, but as a special education teacher, I was an advocate, but like I felt like there's more I could be doing. So I decided to run for Joliet Township School Board. Was very used to sitting up here for a while. I feel very comfortable here. And then had the opportunity to run for Illinois State Senate and won that in November of 2020, started during COVID. I think one of the reasons, as women, as we come up and we talk about our stories, and by the way, I always say this, we all have a story. We all have something we've overcome. We all have women. I say we stand on the shoulders of giants, that we're standing on the shoulders of the women that have gone before us. And I feel very strongly that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But one of the reasons why, and I decided to do this, was because I was like, if it's not going to be me as a state senator, it's going to be someone else. So why not let it be me? And I had women around to support me with that. So that's why I decided to do that. And so everything I do really focuses on education and things I saw as I was an educator, as a special education teacher. And I'll speak more to that. Working and seeing kind of the bullying, seeing sometimes how little boys will treat little girls. And I think we have to make sure that we teach girls right away that they can have boundaries and they can say no, even in preschool and kindergarten, right? Even if it's innocent. So these are some things that I can have kind of crafted my values as to why I'm up here and why I'm doing this. And I can share a little bit more later about that. But that's why I'm here. And I'm so grateful to be here among all these wonderful women and be a part of this. And I want to thank Santa for that as well.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cassandra Ma, and I represent Reclaim 13, and we work with children who have been victimized and survivors of child victimization. And I, as a survivor, when I was growing up, used to love this book about Winnie the Pooh. And I just wanted to read you this one line that always stuck with me, and it's in the book of about Winnie the Pooh. It says, "Here is Edward Bear coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs. But sometimes he feels that there is there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't." Reclaim 13 represents the lives of children who are living quiet lives of desperation, who don't know that there is another way. And Reclaim 13's goal when we started it in 2012 was really to show children that there is another way. There are other adults in this world who do care about children, not like the ones that they first encountered. The way, frankly, that we got started, because we're oftentimes asked this, and my why, was because there are children we know in all of our communities who are living these lives, who need help and want help and don't know how to get help and don't believe in the world that we are all striving to be a part of, which is that better world where all children can grow up feeling safe and loved. So I feel very passionate and blessed to be here. Women do amazing things. And I think that we have a responsibility for our girls growing up to show them that there is a better way. There is a better way to value yourself, and that is different than the way that our media portrays women and girls. That we can show our children, our girls in particular, that there is a better way to be a woman in this world. So thank you.
Thank you. Betty?
Good evening. Can you hear?
Yes.
I am just excited to be here. Thank you, Bonnie and Santa, for inviting me. My why is in 1983, my daughter was murdered. And I didn't have the support nor the help to get through this feeling that I was having. And I needed to have somebody to understand what I was going through. It's such a violent death. She was shot in the head over 85 cents. That belonged, there was an argument between two brothers, and the argument escalated, and he shot in the car where they were, and she was shot 3 times in the head. So with me not having no support, no understanding, I had just moved to Chicago several years earlier. I'm originally from New Orleans. And it was something I've always heard about Chicago and the crime rate and all of this here, but I never thought it would happen to me. When I would look at, watch television, and I would hear the horrible stories of someone being murdered, my heart ached for them. But after a few minutes, I went back to doing my normal thing, my kids and all. So, but when it happened to me, I understood what those families were going through. And I took the initiative to say, well, after Janeria's trial, I needed to do something. I needed to help those who felt like I did at the time. So I started working with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office in homicide, talking to hundreds and hundreds of individuals having the same feelings that I had. So I was able to really encourage them, to support them, to give them what I didn't have. And in 1980, that was in 1985. In 1987, I founded Parents Against Gangs, because the individual who shot her was a gang member. And I wanted to educate parents and community on gang violence and gun violence. So I went on from 1987, and then I established the Family Trauma Advocacy Program, where we provide counseling, free counseling, individual and group counseling, family therapy, all that. And all of this is at free charge. And I'm here at Joliet and I've been here for several years. In the medical district on Haynes. So all of this here, what my why is to give back what the state attorney's office and the families who I've worked with gave to me, because when I was helping them, they were helping me and walking them through the process. So I'm excited to be here. And in my book, when I started writing my book, I wanted to focus on Generia, the steps I had to take for the trial, nobody being there for me. And that's why I was excited about working with the state attorney's office as an advocate, to give them what I didn't get. So when I started my book, I wanted to focus on my loss. But as I would begin to think about Generia, the floodgates opened on all the losses I had encountered earlier. And then I said, well, I have to turn the corner and do something different, not just talk about Generia, but my grief journey. Because my husband was murdered, was killed in a car accident. I had five nephews murdered, and several other horrible incidents. So I wanted to talk about my grief journey, to open that dialogue for people to talk about their grief, because we don't like to talk about death and grief. We hold it in. And that's my purpose, that's my why. And I've been doing this here over 50 years.
Thank you, Betty.
So I really appreciate being here.
Thank you, Betty. I appreciate you. Trisha?
Hi, I was one of those very lucky people who, as a child, absolutely knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was positive that I wanted to be a lawyer because I was very, very good at arguing with people. And like most women, I was very positive I was right. So I was good at proving it, and that was what I wanted to do. And so I went that route and went through college and got a degree in psychology and went to law school. And after law school, I graduated in 2001. And I worked for about 5 years doing various forms of defense work. I mostly defended doctors and medical malpractice cases. And it was fine, and it's a good living and everything, but it wasn't for me. There was nothing really that I felt like I was getting back out of it, other than the time that I was investing into it and a pretty decent paycheck. But at that time, I decided that I really wanted to look into what I set out to do, and that was be a prosecutor. And so in 2006, I met my current boss, Jim Glasgow. He's our state's attorney still. And I started working for our state's attorney's office in the misdemeanor division and continued to work my way up to where I am now, which is running our complaints office. Throughout all of that, the one thing I could say that I learned that was my why and why I wanted to do this is I really believe that, as you can see from everybody on this panel and all of you, it does take everybody in the community to come together and right wrongs and to make society a safer place. And now, at this point in my life, I have 2 children. I have a 16-year-old. I have a 13-year-old daughter who's here. I really want to make the world a safer place for them. I want them to not be afraid, particularly my daughter, to do what she wants to do and to go outside and to date who she wants to date and to live her life. There shouldn't be any sort of restraints on that. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps me doing my job. That and I prosecuted the case involving Bronny's niece. And all I can say is that when you deal with cases like that, we at the state's attorney's office meet people at their worst moments in life. It is so hard to even meet people at that initial grief stage. And by the end of working through a case with them, you begin to see that there can be a small silver lining in something that is so horrible to happen to people. I met wonderful people throughout that case. And one thing that I saw that came forth so much in there is all of the different people in the community who came together to do the right thing for Maya. And that was so heartwarming, because not only did we have like friends of the defendant that came in and testified against him, from the random Lyft driver who picked him up to police and fire and everybody else. And you can look at this whole puzzle and see that every person can play a very small role in making this world a safer place for our women, right? So that is my why. That is why I continue to do it. I try to play even just that small role that I can in making it a safer place for everybody.
Thank you so much, Trisha. And my family is so grateful to her because the person was prosecuted within a year, and now the person is serving a life sentence. So thank you for everything that you did. We're going to start talking about this one thing that happens, and some people think that it's not a crime, and that is bullying. I'm going to tell you about a situation. I was mentoring someone, and she called me. She was inside the washroom at a school, and I said, okay, it's the middle of the day. What's going on? And she said, there's some people after me. This girl is beautiful, an honor roll student, palms, that type of thing. And it was really sad to hear this story. And I said, that's okay. So me and my husband, we packed up right away and went to her rescue. And the sad part about it was when we got to the school, there were people trying to put her, instead of dealing with the situation because they didn't know how, they were going to put her in alternative school care. And we said no. So we developed a team among the staff at the school to surround her and to keep her safe. But I want to just focus the attention now to you, Sherry, to talk about Deputy Chief Sherry Blackwell Byrne, to talk about this whole bullying thing. Some people think that it is not unlawful. Can you get rid of that myth?
Any unwanted touching or intimidation or harassment, that's not okay. Mostly we'll get calls, and it is with the school. Schools have adopted policies, and there's rules and restrictions that are in place for no bullying. So if we get a call, typically there's more involved. It's not just bullying. It starts with that. So our job as law enforcement, we are a small spoke in the wheel. As Trish said, there's everybody needs to come together so that we can find a solution. Interviewing the child as much as possible. Obviously, we want to contact their parent, but the school has the primary role in that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is there someone else that wants to?
There was a question.
Oh,
yeah.
Can we have the questions later? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So, I mean, we'll investigate it initially. But removing children out of school, or especially if they're the victim, absolutely not. We have to work with the schools and law enforcement. We have to abide by whatever the school district rules. We try to problem solve. Obviously, identify who the alleged offender is, and separate what's the best method that we can do in the school. Because obviously, they're there to get education. We want to make sure it's safe. Everybody, schools, churches, you should feel safe. Those are the places that you go to, right? That's, some of the things that we do, and then mediate. Mm-hmm. If there are crimes in place, obviously, yes. I mean, that's what law enforcement, but it starts with bullying, and then it ends up being harassment, intimidation. Those are crimes against a person.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
One of the things that I wanted to share is most of what I've seen has been in schools. And I think it's really important, especially as a pre-K or a kindergarten teacher, when you're starting out and you see, like what we were saying before, like unwanted touching, pulling of hair, that you empower the person that's being bullied or touched to say no. So when I was a teacher and I would see this happening, I would go to the kid and say, do you like that? No. Tell him or her to stop that you don't like that. Say, please stop. And I think that these are things that we can teach, because it's interesting, as much as we are working so hard as a culture and as empowered women to teach our girls that, somehow I think we still have a long way to go. But going back to the school system then, I think there are things in place. You can report that. You can make sure that that is being worked on, that talk to the school administrator, contact the teacher. There's a process in place for that. If that process is not followed, you follow through to the superintendent. If that process is not followed, you contact your board members. One of the things that we've done at the legislature level for bullying, because it's stories like these that we hear that help us create legislation, is there, and to the stories, a lot of it comes from stories. There was a child that was being bullied at school. He told the teacher reported it to the administration did not notify the parent, and then that child ended up committing suicide. And I know that can be a really hard thing to say, but like, that's exactly what happened. So as a result of this story, one of the senators, one of my colleagues crafted a law that once an administrator knows, they have 24 hours to contact the parents and let them know that this is going on so that they can provide the support. Now, it's not a perfect system. There's always going to be some story where people fell through the cracks, but that is something that we are working at the legislative level to try to make sure and ensure that schools have the support systems in place to do that.
Great. Thank you. Zoe?
Yeah, I would just comment from the prevention education piece, or that side of it. I was really struck when you started by talking about bullying as a crime. I think that is something we have to end up convincing people, that bullying is just as serious as these other behaviors that are violent, right? I'll share with you just a definition, right? So when we are educating about abuse, hoping to prevent it in the community, maybe we're with 6th through 12th grade, for example, right? In our presentations, we use this definition of regular or repeated treatment with cruelty or with violence and the use of power and control. Now, we say that that is the definition of abuse, as general as we can make it, right? It could be physical or not physical, but there's always those ingredients of power and control, repeated treatment with cruelty or with violence. Bullying absolutely falls in that category, right? So it's just one example then of an abusive behavior. So we do end up, unfortunately, having to convince our communities, right, that this is super serious, but it absolutely is an example of an abusive behavior. So we have to do all those prevention things and all of those response things as well.
That's great. Anybody else?
I want to mention with my, we've gone through this in my family. My grandson, from kindergarten, he had started being bullied. And he was so emotional when he came home. I mean, he went through this from kindergarten until my daughter had to actually ask the superintendent to transfer him out of district. And they did everything that they could. That was the guidelines they had given him. They talked to the teacher, the principal. They documented everything. They sent it to the principal, CC'd it to the school board and the superintendent, and it got so bad, they had to take him, and they agreed to put him in another district. But even when he went to that other school, they still were bullying, and it seemed like they have no solutions to it. And I'm glad to hear legislation is being done. I mean, we had to pick him up from school out of the district because he was in the area where he could walk to school for grade school and middle school. But we had to have somebody to pick him up from school, drop him off to school until he got in high school, and we still had to do this, and that started from grade school. And we did everything we could, but no resolve.
Trisha, can people be prosecuted for bullying?
Certainly, it's not something that we would call bullying as a crime in and of itself. But of course, any type of bullying behavior can escalate to, as Sherry said, assault or battery or intimidation or any number of crimes that we could absolutely prosecute somebody for.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on. Domestic violence. I know that Zonta International is really big when it comes to domestic violence. So, Kate, I'm going to start with you. And I know that there are a number of statistics, too, that are posted on the site in regards to that as well. And it's kind of escalating.
Yes. So every single year during the months, the end of November into December, it's November 25th through December 10th, we hold a campaign called the Zonta Says No to Violence Against Women campaign. It's the 16 days of activism. And this is one of the greatest things for Zonta, and it's also the most depressing. So every single community is affected by gender-based violence. Every single family is. Now, the statistic is 45% of women had or know someone who has been affected by gender-based violence. 7 out of 10 women believe that abuse has increased since the pandemic, and 6 out of 10 women believe that just general harassment has increased since the pandemic. Unfortunately, we know these stats to be wrong. It's much higher. This is because what is reported is what people feel safe enough to actually come forward and speak about. So less than 40% of women will seek help. And that's because of fear, and that's because of lack of services. Now, these are international stats, but I know up and down this panel, you know this is true within our own communities. It's not just another country across the world, it's here. Fewer than 10% who sought help, that had that opportunity to go and speak to someone, fewer than 10% actually went further and went to the police. In general, they go home. They have nowhere else to go. This isn't, again, somebody across the world in a village. This is here. So what do we do about it? 162 countries have laws on domestic violence, but are those laws good enough? What do those laws actually say? And then it comes down to the enforcement of those laws. So I'm sitting on a panel with really amazing women who are fighting for this day in and day out to get these laws on paper. And then what happens? Well, then we have other really great community services come in and help enforce that. We have groups like Zonta who go and talk to partner communities, who go and talk to the police stations and say, okay, so this woman comes in, she's saying that she's been raped. Where are you having her tell her story? It's in this cold, white room on a chair that is much less comfortable than the one I'm sitting at right now. And you want her to go into detail about what she went through? Which is why we have so many clubs who go into the police stations and say, where's your survivor room? And they say, what's a survivor room? It's the room where you can actually tell the story, where you feel comfortable enough, where you feel safe enough, so that these numbers where they say that they can go and actually report their story, they're actually going to report it. And they're going to feel safe enough and secure enough to continue to find a place of safety, to get their families out of that situation. So those numbers, I would love to actually have 45% be the actual reality, but unfortunately it's not. So that's what today's all about, is inspiring each other, sharing those stories, saying, hey, I went through something just like that. There's this group that can help you. And that's what's so important about sharing your story, what's so important about knowing about these organizations and knowing about these amazing leaders who are making a change. So I hope I answered some of your question about what we're doing.
Truly did. Truly did.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to just go over to Deputy Chief Sherry Blackburn for a minute, talk about one point that you said. It's hard for a woman to come forth and pretty much say, I've been, in a situation involving domestic violence, and sometimes people are thinking that they're really picked on, but what you're really trying to do is find evidence to convict the person, correct?
Yeah. So sometimes when officers show up, we need to show up with compassion, empathy, and be able to develop a rapport with somebody. I understand some victims may say, "Oh, that officer, they just wanted to know the here, what, where, when, and why." In the mind, the officers already wanted to get justice for that victim. Our main goal is to try to have that offender arrested and put away. Nothing more satisfying for an officer is, especially when crimes against women, elderly, and children. I mean, we take that to heart. The vast majority of us have families of our own, and we're people just like everybody else. So just educating and training our officers, when you show up, don't be so rushed. Let them tell the story in their own, and it's going to be patchy when they tell you what happened, the incident. Just be patient. Put yourself in their shoes. You have a mother, a sister, an aunt. Just keep that in mind. And try to put the victim at ease and let them know they did not do anything wrong. That's what we try to do at the beginning, but it's difficult for the victim to tell that story and come forward. And one of the things that we want to make sure that, and we're required to do it, they don't know what the resources are. So when we do complete a report, we are required to give them a victim's right form. It's Marcy's right. Make sure that they know what they're afforded. There's resources. They should have the opportunity to know when that offender's getting out or released. What's the status of the investigation? They should be able to get a report, right? They shouldn't have to pay for that report. So there's a lot of rights that they don't know about. So that sheet of paper may just be a sheet of paper, but it does contain a lot of information. And we remind our officers, go through it with them. It'll take you a couple minutes, and that's going to mean a lot more to them.
And getting the information is easier for the person to be prosecuted. And so we're going to go over to you, Tricia, about that.
Yes, obviously, the more information that we have, the better and the easier that it is to prosecute. One of the things I know that victims are often very afraid of when they come both through the police and to our office is that very many times, especially in domestic violence cases, those victims have reported domestic violence in the past and have not necessarily cooperated later. So often we will see a person is very afraid to speak now because on 5 or 6 prior occasions, they did not necessarily want to go forth with prosecution. And so, 2 things I would say on that. Number one, I don't think you're going to find anybody in the state's attorney's office or the police that I know of that would judge you for not going forward on the prior times when something has happened this time. If it is the 7th or 8th time and that is the time that you are ready to prosecute, then we are ready as well. So that would be number one. And number two, I would say that if victims are at all afraid to continue to prosecute, just talk to us, talk to the police, tell us what your fears are and what it is that you want. In every single case, the state's attorney's office is not always looking to send people to prison. It is not just a hammer situation. So victims are frequently looking for help. And if that help that is best for that case is not necessarily prison, but is alcohol treatment and counseling for the offender and working with families to keep families together, we do those kinds of things as well. So, I would just say that any victim in any of those situations, just be willing to come forward and talk and say what you're looking for and what has happened to you. And you will find that we are always willing to listen.
Okay, great. And Betty, you worked with our family in dealing with trauma involving Maya. And we thank you for all the counseling that we've received. How do you deal with the trauma once you've been victimized?
Well, I'll speak on myself first. I didn't know how to deal with the trauma. I was pretty much at loss. I mean, I didn't know where to go. And a lot of families who are dealing with trauma, and especially if they have court appearances, they don't they put that on hold because they want to go through the course, because trying to deal with their grief and their trauma is too overwhelming for them. So we just do counseling with them. We talk to them. We encourage them, and get family, as you and your family did, family support groups where all the family got together and talked about it and processed what was going on. But some families don't want to do that, and we have to let them go through what they're going through with the courts, but support them in the meantime, being there for them. And I do go to court with the families. Be there for them, because every individual is different. And there's no right or wrong in trying to be able to, decide on what to do. So my suggestion is, just be there to support them, encourage them, and let them know that they have someone there that's going to stand by them and walk alongside them.
Also to keep them safe, right? Too.
Yes. We provide that safety net as also, because if they're going through something, even families that I've had to support and deal with, I remember one of them, son was murdered, and the father started shrinking heavily, and then being aggressive towards his wife, because they started blaming each other. So we were there to support her and also talk to him, to talk him down, to calm him down, and to have a mediation with the family. So everybody is different, but let them go through and don't judge. Don't judge, but allow them to be able to talk, allow them to be able to express themselves, allow them to be able to, whatever they feel like doing is no right or wrong. Allow them to feel the way they feel. And when they're ready, they're going to give themselves permission to begin to do that, go through that grieving process. So, in the domestic violence case, I've had several families that were going through that and didn't know what to do. So we were there to be able to walk them through it.
That's great. Zoe?
Yeah, I just really appreciate what we just heard, right? Of trying to be survivor-centered is what we refer to it as advocates, right? Allowing that survivor of violence to really lead in that situation. Only they understand the nuances and the ins and outs of their particular situation, right? So at Guardian Angel, a survivor maybe of domestic violence might work with Groundwork, that domestic violence program. A survivor of sexual assault might work with our sexual assault program, right? But that goal is always just to be that emotional support person, help increase those feelings of safety through processes like we were just talking about, right? Because as nice as it is to hear you all talk about how much you're there to show up for them, right? Survivors don't always know that. Sometimes they're just really scared or really intimidated by a legal setting, by the hospital setting, right? And so they don't not only know that these services maybe exist and that there's nice people waiting to help them, right? But they're just super intimidated. And what's going to happen? Are they going to think it's my fault, right? Our culture tells our survivors that violence is their fault, right? And it's not. So at Guardian Angel, it's really our job to just be next to them and try to offer that support, go along with them, as we were just saying, right? Just being that support, trying to reassure them and provide those options, but also just making it more comfortable to access these resources that maybe they wouldn't without our encouragement or suggestion, right?
Okay. Anybody else?
One thing too, I've had families in domestic violence cases, and the police was called. They wouldn't press charges because they were afraid, and they were embarrassed, and they thought they were going to be judged. So only thing that we can do for them is counsel them, encourage them, be there for them, and tell them, it's at that moment, it's okay how you're feeling right now. You have to feel how you feel and cannot judge them. But I also encourage them to be able to continue their counseling. But a lot of them that I've spoken with over the years, they're afraid to leave, but because they have no support, that's their support system. They're not working. What am I going to do? I have kids, so I got to go back to him. And that's a sad situation because they're dependent on that individual. So only thing we can do is to support them and give them counseling until they make their mind up.
Yeah, I think
What they're going to
empowerment
do.
is maybe a good word too, right? Like if we can somehow empower
Yes.
folks, right? Like just to know what options are possible, what they might really want to do. Right?
And we give them that option, but that's all we can give them. But they have to make up their mind that they're going to take that step to seek that help and do what they need to do to get out of that situation.
Thank you so much. In regards to human trafficking, there was a situation where I knew of someone who was involved. A friend of hers lured her to like Iowa, and she kind of got caught in human trafficking, and who knows what was going on in the actual home. But one of the things that happened was she amazingly got free. She busted out of the home, ran to the street, and flagged down a person who was driving by, and the person took her to the police department. She reported the case, and she managed to get back home. Human trafficking is something that is very real, and it's happening every day. Dr. Cassandra Ma, can you tell us more about what you are doing in this area?
Absolutely. And you're right. There are, and it's very similar to the conversation we were just having about domestic violence. The relationships that human trafficking are comprised of are very similar in that different from kind of the sort of stereotypes that we oftentimes see in movies. It's not oftentimes something that starts with kidnapping or abduction. It's usually something that starts with a relationship with somebody. In this case, what we work with is children who develop a relationship with an adult, because as you were mentioning, these children are in a dependent state. Children are not able to take care of themselves, and so they depend upon adults. If they don't have adults in their lives who are taking care of them, then they will go to other people, and these people prey upon children. And so we operate the Safe House, Cherish House, which is the only safe house in the whole state that works with children who have been trafficked between the ages of 10 and 17. We're very proud of Cherish House and being able to offer all those different services that children need to be able to succeed, including their education and therapies and pediatric care. We also then have a next program, which is a young adult program, which serves young adults 18 to 25 who have been trafficked. And our goal really is what we call forever community for our kids. Our kids are kids who do not have adequate support, whether it be through their family or their communities. And that's not to say their families can't support them and are not supporting them, but it's just not enough to be able to help them get over the hurdles. Oftentimes our families have struggled with these issues themselves as well as in its intergenerational pattern. So we come alongside the families, we come alongside our kids to be able to support them in forever communities so that they can grow up. And at every point in their development, we can celebrate with them. So we've had kids graduate from high school. We've had kids go on to nursing school, to vocational schools, to cosmetology is something that all of our kids want to go into. College, whatever their dreams are, whatever their goals are, we help them to be able to dream again. Once children feel safe, they can begin to dream and they can begin to hope. All the things that we want for all of our children is what we want for our kids as well. So
I heard something, it was kind of startling to me in regards to the Super Bowl, that is a high time to attract young girls for trafficking. Have you heard anything like that?
yeah, unfortunately, anywhere, I'm going to be gendered, anywhere where you have a large gathering of men, you have, at major conventions and Super Bowl, we have a couple different major conventions coming up. you will unfortunately, the problem of human trafficking exists. Basically, wherever there's people who are willing to pay for children, you'll have wherever you have a market, you're going to have people take advantage of that. So
I don't get it. As far as like with the Super Bowl, would our eyes be on the ball and the game or whatever, and no one's watching children? Or I don't understand why the volume is so high for human trafficking.
So traffickers tend to be bullies in the extreme sense of the word. They're not, oftentimes the traffickers that our kids have been ensnared by are not necessarily organized crime, although that does exist. Some of them come from gangs. Some of the traffickers are gang oriented. But by and large, most of the traffickers that our kids encounter are simply opportunistic people who think that it's okay to prey upon a vulnerable individual, in this case, children. And so they will bring children, they will bring victims to places where they can, I'm trying to be careful with my language, but they can market these precious individuals.
Wow. You have a statistic, I think it's on your website, where you said 95% of the people that you house are around 12 or 13 years old or something?
Yeah.
Wow.
So 95%, in fact, I would say higher than that, but with the exception of over the past 12 years, just 3 or 4 kids that we worked with, all of our kids were sexually abused prior to being trafficked. All of our kids were trafficked at 13 or younger. And so we're very intentional about preventing and talking with young people. We have a video that we're happy to share with you that is geared towards 10 and up, children 10 and up, but be able to help children understand that this is a very real thing that's going on in our world, that we want to protect all children from.
Wow. So Tricia, in regards to like prosecuting them, is that something that we've stepped up on? Because I understand that Illinois is in the top 10 for trafficking. So I don't know.
I don't have a lot of experience with human trafficking prosecuting. I think a lot of those are done federally because of crossing state lines and all the federal laws that exist. So we don't have locally any cases that I know of.
Okay.
We do have cases, involving prostitution and children, but not necessarily trafficking per se.
Okay. Any other comments about trafficking?
I was going to say that some of the common denominators with that are fear, fraud, or coercion when the offender is luring them into that. It can happen in any community at any level. Some are very sophisticated on how they do that. Look at hotels. There might, when you're talking about the Super Bowl, big events like that. So we'll say, for instance, Joliet, it's about 150,000 population. Well, we have 260 officers. So you are the eyes and ears. If you see something, you should report it. Sometimes the victims, they don't know any other way, or they feel ashamed because they've had to commit crimes, so they don't want to report. So if an officer does get a call of something suspicious, we need to ask those questions. We need to look for red flags. Are they very withdrawn? Are they looking to the other person that's there for them to speak for them? Unusual bruising that may have scarred over. So some of the red flags that we need to look for, because it can happen anywhere, like what you were saying, Bonnie. And you have to help be the eyes and ears so we can start an investigation. And these are very extensive investigations. So we are going to rely on our federal partners and state's attorneys.
That's really something, So thank you for sharing all that information, because we do have to know what we're looking for. Wow. Cassandra, I wanted to ask you one thing. You're building a facility, correct? Tell us about it.
You're building the facility. We are dreaming of building a facility.
Gotcha. It's in the mind.
Very much desire to have a community. One of the common factors, as has been said, is that our kids don't have family. They don't have adequate family. And so we talk about Forever Community to be able to build around our survivors a community that they can always rely upon. They can always call upon. We don't have any length of stay for our programs, because trauma doesn't have any sort of time limit on how quickly people can move through trauma. And so our goal is to be able to open up a campus where our young adults and adult survivors, any adult survivor sexual abuse, exploitation, or trafficking can come to live. They can also receive services with a community center that will be on site, where they can receive therapy, they can receive mentoring, they can receive all the beautiful support that we are able to offer, all in one place. And more importantly, they can come back and they can celebrate, St. Patrick's Day is coming up. They can come back and celebrate when they're home from school. They can come back and celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas with us, because that's the community that we desire to be.
Great. So, Tricia, you just recently got promoted. Tell us about your new position.
My new position is supervising the complaints division at our office. So basically, any felony charging decision would come in through the complaints department. At like all charges, indictments, things like that are filed come through the complaints department.
Mm-hmm.
So before that, I was working a lot in narcotics and gangs and organized crime, supervising that unit. And so I've taken over this as well.
If you have never seen this lady in court in action, you should make a point of, I don't know if it's too late now, but she is amazing.
Thank you.
She really is. And she has a passion for winning, particularly when she sees wrong. And she's really fantastic. And she walks in like a fashionista as well. So
thank you.
So we have our great Senator Goodell here, and tell us about, you were in education. I know you mentioned a little bit about education. That's where your heart is. And now you're doing something with legislature and all of that. Just tell us a little bit more about what you got your hands in. Well, thanks.
Thank you. The legislative level, this is something I think we're very concerned about and passionate about. And we are passing legislation that helps with all of the issues that we've talked about. When I first came on to the General Assembly, one of the committees I was on was the Behavioral and Mental Health Committee, which dealt with some of the trauma and how we support unhoused and children that are trafficked and maybe have been placed into foster care. And so we've created a system with a new children's behavioral mental health person called Dana Weiner, who's helping to kind of coordinate all of these agencies into more of a streamlined system for children. Finding placements, foster care, and is taking all of our agencies and helping to try to find, beds for mental health, help with foster care, things like that. So that's one of them. We've also helped implement that 988 hotline, which is where you can call for bullying, or if you're feeling like harming yourself, it's like a crisis line. Those are things we've done, but I kind of want to touch briefly, really quick, on what we're working on now. And one more thing that we passed in the last legislative session. We know AI is becoming an issue.
Yes.
It's becoming an issue where they take faces and manipulate images.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a bill passed by Senator Mary Adley Allen where you couldn't do that, and especially so it protects women and children from being bullied or harassed online through these social media sites or blackmailed. So that's something that we passed. Along that same line, Senator Stottleman has a bill that's coming through the General Assembly now with stalking. So we know using technology, using our Apple AirTags, those tracking devices. I actually have stats for you on this, that 1 out of 3 women have experienced stalking, and 1 out of 6 men have experienced stalking. And so now these electronic devices, they're beginning to use those. So what it does is just kind of changes what the definition of the course of conduct of stalking would be to include this, so that if someone's caught using one, or it can be also used as breaking a restraining order and things like that. So those are just a couple things. And one more thing about access to helping support people who have been victims of domestic violence and are trying to leave. Senator Kaler has picked up a bill in from the House where it removes any of those fees that they need for those vital records to maybe move on to another place or move into another home. It just removes the fees for applications that they might need to get that for victims of domestic violence. So it's just another way to support women who don't have the resources to get out of those situations. Another thing that I have done, because I know that this is such a huge issue, is I was able to help our Guardian Angel Community Center get a $500,000 grant.
That's awesome.
So I can't promise anything next year. Tight budget this year. But because it's been such a staple in our community, and it really is one of those agencies that helps pull all sorts of partnerships in the community. So from someone that, can be that voice for victims at the state level and help bring resources to the community, that is something that I'm very passionate about and I'm very passionate about doing. So, and my office is always available too. Good legislation comes out of these stories. It comes out of victims and bullying and hearing these things and how we can fix that. And so that's what we're here to do. And that's what I'm here and available to do as well.
That is great. What is a lead preventionist, Zoe? When I saw that, I was really puzzled by it, Yeah,
no, I'm happy to speak more on my job. So when we say Guardian Angel Community Services, we might actually mean a lot of different things. So bear with me a little bit. I'm going to put on my prevention hat for a second and just educate for a minute here. Guardian Angel Community Services is quite a busy agency. If you picture us like a big house, right? We've got walls that surround us. We've got a nice roof overhead, but we have 6 distinct programs that are their own rooms within that house. So maybe sometimes those doors between the rooms open up and we collaborate and we work together. But they're all very distinct and very different, right? Clients can go to one and then cross over to the other, but doing different things, right? So we have foster care, which was kind of mentioned, right? We have a foster care program. We have an exchange club program, which does parenting classes in those foster care situations. We've got a partner abuse intervention program. So working with those partners who have been abusive, right? We've got our groundwork domestic violence program. We've got my program, that's the sexual assault program. And then we also have a transitional housing program specifically for survivors called Susie's Caring Place. So if a survivor meets their program requirements, for a year to 18 months, I believe, they can receive rental assistance to move away from that abusive person and kind of get back on their own 2 feet and be independent, right? So to your question, what's a lead preventionist? Basically, through the sexual assault program specifically, I am out in the community giving presentations, doing groups in different ways, speaking to different groups in different sides of our community, trying to prevent sexual violence specifically. The Groundwork Domestic Violence Program also has their own prevention team. So we do some different things. We do some similar things. But the goal is to prevent violence. So when we're talking to the community, we're thinking about, okay, what groups of people are at risk for these types of violence the most, right? It is girls and women a lot of the time, right? It is young people. It is folks with disabilities, right? Not through any fault of their own, but just because people who are abusive do tend to target who they think won't be supportive, won't tell, things like that, right? And then when we are picking our topics and we're trying to prevent, we're thinking about, okay, what are our protective factors? What does our community need to know to maybe be a little bit safer in the future? So we try to make sure everybody understands what a healthy relationship looks like. What does abuse look like? What's the difference? If those abusive things are happening, what do we do about them? How do we ask for support? How do we support each other? What are some signs to look for? Things like that. So lots of information to your question, but basically I do the fun stuff, right? I get to talk to people all day long.
That's great.
Yeah.
Kate, in regards to Zonta International, what's the best part of your job?
It's the storytelling. It's getting to know that across the globe, everyone has a story to tell, but everyone is really trying to make a difference. I have all these, I call them amazingly gross stats in front of me. But what is absolutely amazing is I hear stories, and it's actually called Share Your Story. That's the platform we use. And these stories come in about something that happened with someone within the community, and then something built upon that. So, as you said, I wrote it down. Good legislation comes out of these stories. Absolutely. It's those stories inspire others. So I'm constantly inspired by our members. I'm constantly inspired by, we have over 1,000 clubs across the globe, and every single one of them makes a huge impact. Today is also Zonta Rose Day.
Yes, it is.
And we chose to have Zonta Rose Day on the exact same day as International Women's Day because not enough people knew about International Women's Day and not enough people knew about Zonta. So we used this day to talk about who has inspired you. Now, I'm gonna do something. Everyone just close your eyes. Just close your eyes or just look down. I want you to think of a woman. Now, this woman could be fictional. She could be real. And I want you to think about how this woman has impacted your life. Wow, look at all those smiles coming in those faces. That's amazing. Now, I want you to know, you can open your eyes. I want you to know that someone out there thinks of you in that same way. And it's because of how you act. It's how you want to make the world a better place. So the question was, what's so great about working at Zonta? What's the greatest thing? It's you guys.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. Oh, wow. That was loaded. I know. I know. So, Sherry, in regards to your job, you've done a lot in your career. You're deputy chief now. And what is most rewarding for you?
Most rewarding, now that I'm in a position that I can make things better for the women in the police department. Like I said, when I was hired, there were only 8. Now they're 39. I have the opportunity to provide opportunities for women. There's many times that we won't take those opportunities because we are primary caregivers. So we might pass up on taking a promotion or taking an assignment. But I always encourage them, take that. Those opportunities don't come up that often. Prepare yourself for when those opportunities come up so you can take them. The time that you take this position or the assignment is not when you should be getting ready. You should already be ready. Be confident in yourself. Knowledge is power, right? Read self-help books, self-talk. You have to be confident in it. I work in a male-dominated profession, and I have for a very long time. There's a lot of really good men in my profession. I've had male mentors, not too many females. So my role now is to be a mentor. I'm going to leave my department in a better place than when I was here by providing more opportunities for women, encouraging them to step outside of their comfort zone through education, like I said, or training. I'm very passionate about training. I'm part of our recruitment team. Putting your face out there. I said earlier, you have to see it to be it. Well, I'm living proof. You can do, if you put your mind to it, hard work, but it pays off. Be confident. Women are powerful. We really are. And I think sometimes we don't sell ourselves. And don't be afraid to talk about yourself and your accomplishments when you go interview for whatever profession you're in. Sell yourself. You have a lot of value.
That is great. Awesome. For our audience, I want you to just prepare if you have any questions or whatever. I'm just going to zip through, starting with Trisha, just to ask one other question really quickly. But we're going to have a situation where Pat has the mic and she'll come to you if you have any questions. But first, Trisha, can you think of, I'm looking at success and transformation. Can you tell us a story?
So a couple of years ago, we prosecuted a case where a gymnastics coach had been sexually assaulting several of his students throughout the years that he had been a gymnastics coach. And all of the girls were about the same age that most of these people, like, 12, 13-year-old girls that were studying gymnastics. And as we were prosecuting the case that was in our jurisdiction, the girl who was a young preteen at the time, by the time we were ready to try it, was finishing college. She's an adult. And so she had told us about how this act that happened to her made her, even though she was one of the top gymnasts in the state at the time, completely quit gymnastics. She couldn't handle going there anymore. She couldn't handle seeing him. She couldn't handle dealing with the situation. And she got out of there for a few years. She ended up going to college. She ended up being a phenomenal gymnast who won all kinds of awards while she was in college. She then was finishing her nursing degree. And by the time we were doing her trial, she was finishing her nursing degree and is a very accomplished, amazing young lady. But in addition to that, she also had reached out to people who she knew while she was going through gymnastics, who she was afraid to talk to back then. People had asked her about this guy and like, did he ever do this to you? And she wouldn't say. And she ended up almost, I don't want to say recruiting, but talking to other people and asking them to come forward with their stories. And throughout all of this, we found people who went back as far as the 80s, who had been victims of the same man who is now spending the rest of his life in prison, who got 96 years, I believe he got for what he did in our county. But we ended up with an entire group of females who had all been victims of his, who all ended up being very strong, very supportive to each other, young women. And it was a really good thing to see.
That's awesome. Oh, your book, Betty. Hold your book up.
I was going to talk about something else first, but this is my book, Shattered but Not Broken. But a really story to tell that really touched my heart. A family that I have met in a hospital. See, I have advocates in the hospital as well, Trauma One Center level. And this family had come in, and when we get there, the doctors or the social workers usually call us in, and an advocate go to the hospital. But this particular time, I was there, and once they did the death notification, we usually go in and talk to the families, to let them see their loved ones and say their goodbyes. And this was a young lady. She had 2 girls. Her husband was shot and killed at Menards in Chicago. And it's horrible. But anyway, over the course of time, working with her, going through the trial and all, and counseling her kids and her, she got married again, and we still keep in touch. And we don't have a final, how some places, I don't know if they give you 10 weeks or 6 weeks. We work with the family until they say, I'm okay and I don't need to come back. But when they want to come back, they can. But this particular person now, Brenda, I'll say her name is Brenda. She remarried. She went on to, she didn't think that she would be able to make it because she had 2 small kids. And with counseling and encouraging her that she can do it. And she went on to get her degree in education. Now she's teaching, her kids are in college, and they have did a transformation. And I was so proud to know that she didn't allow, a tragedy to come to triumph. It was a purpose, she had a purpose for her life. And I really admire Brenda because she didn't let that person take from her. She was able to pull through, and her kids is in college. They didn't graduated, and we still keep in touch. And I am so, so proud to have been part of her life. And there's so many other stories with families. But I say with that, even with myself, I didn't think that I would be able to make it, but I did. And we feel that we can't when something happened to us that's so traumatic. We give up. We don't want to, we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But with me being able to accomplish writing this book, that was an accomplishment for me. And I encourage other families that I see, you can make a difference in somebody else's life. And over the years with the program and the counseling center, we have made a difference in many of lives where people have gone on to be able to support somebody else who have been in their situation.
Dr. Cassandra?
It's like choosing your favorite child to figure out the story you want to tell. There's so many beautiful stories that I just want to share all of our kids with you. But, the couple, I'll just share a couple snippets of a couple stories. I'll make it very brief. But one of our girls was trafficked. So there are different traffickers, men and women. One of our kids was trafficked by her foster mom, who took her in initially as a mom figure for her. Which she had always wanted, and then paraded her around the gym for about a month before, which she thought was just working out to get her fit, but was basically parading her in front of all the men for trafficking purposes, which started about a month after she went to live with this woman. And over the course of the time she was being trafficked, one of the parts of her story that was really moving was she was on her way to a call, and she was told to go up and change because she was being brought to meet a man for a call. And as she was going there, she was in tremendous physical pain from all the abuse and the exploitation. She looked up in the sky and she saw an angel. And as she tells the story, she said that she knew that God saw her pain because she had been crying out to him. And as she went to the call, and the call, unbeknownst to her, was actually an FBI sting that they do every year, where the person who was the person who made the call supposedly was actually a law enforcement person, who they quickly removed her and took her out of that situation. And that was just a beautiful story. And she is thriving now. She is in college. She's gone through high school with our program. We have become her community, her family. And so that's just one. And then just really quickly about another one that is sort of epitomizes what the stories of most of our girls are. She was sexually abused when she was 6, starting at the age of 6 through 9. Was running away at the age of 9 and locked out. And so, we tell that story because it's so easy for us all to understand why our children are so vulnerable when they don't have people, when you're locked out, when nobody's looking for you at the age of 9. So she was picked up by her trafficker, the boyfriend, the 20-something-year-old man who picked her up and took care of her, ostensibly to care for her, but turned out to be her trafficker. And so she is thriving now. She's in our programs and she is thriving now. She's a beautiful she's having to reclaim a lot of her history, a lot of her childhood as a young adult now, but we're very proud of her. She's going after her GED and just a super remarkable young woman in the beautiful character that she was born with, that she has been able to retain and reclaim for herself. And so those are two of our favorite babies.
That's great. It's awesome.
So for me, what I got when I see like transformation and the ability to make change, my first year in office, I had a mom call me about her son who she had adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And she shares her story very openly. So I'm going to share pieces of it. Her son was adopted and was on an IEP, which is in special education, ran into a situation with some criminal issues and some issues where she had to protect her daughters. So she's in a situation where she's trying to protect her son, who she adopted, who's clearly has some serious issues going on, and her daughters. She had been through several agencies, Department of Juvenile Justice, Illinois State Board of Education, DCFS, all sorts of agencies. She was a trained social worker in the private and the public school setting and could not maneuver the agencies that she needed for support. So I was able to have her testify in a joint hearing between the House and the Senate. And just so you know, Sarah Feigenholtz is a very strong advocate for these types of situations. And she was like, Meg, I said, oh, she did a great job. And she's like, no, Meg, she was that hearing. She was that hearing. And so because of that, we were able to talk and going back to the legislation we passed to streamline our services through agencies and make them talk to one another and provide the services that is in legislation that they are there to provide. The problem is everybody gets stuck in their own little rut on how they do things. And I know a lot of people get mad at legislators, but at least we're trying to get them to do the things that they're supposed to be doing. And so that is one of the things that I think I'm really proud of and was able to really make a difference.
That's great.
Okay, yeah. When I think about success, it's kind of hard to not just talk about my team and rave about them up here for a while. So I think I'm going to do that a little bit. In the Sexual Assault Service Center, we have a group of phenomenal women and one amazing non-binary person. And all together, I think the support that we've been able to give one another, the way that we're able to kind of build each other up, the way that we enable each other to pursue our passion projects and, just different communities and causes we're super passionate about, has really strengthened our program and strengthened each of us as we provide these services. You may know if we have folks, who are working in like victim services, that work is really challenging. It can be really emotional to take a hotline call at 3 a.m, right? And talk about the worst moments of somebody's life, right? So when you have a strong support system, it goes a long way, and we ultimately build up those survivors a little bit better. So we've seen our presence in hospitals really increase and be wonderful. We've seen our disclosures in school settings go up. Which just means like a student comes up and talks to us about an experience of abuse. And I really think that those things are related, right? Like I think we are just at the top of our game and given the best support because we are supported. So that's my biggest success.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think one of the greatest successes is getting to see my work, what I write about, what I put into press releases, what I put onto social media that gets spread out. And then I get to see those exact same graphics and those messaging being used to help write legislation, to help support clubs that can get actual movement done. One of the greatest things that Zonta International is doing is the biggest push to end child marriage across the globe. Now, in the United States, people might think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. That doesn't happen here. It sure does. And what is even more shocking is that there's not a law out there that says you can't get married until you're an actual adult. But one of the greatest things that I see is when I get to see people that I know what they're doing out in their clubs and their communities, and they're sitting next to their governor of their state as they sign a law that says 18, no exception for ending child marriage. So the greatest news is Washington just became the 11th state to have that on paper, on law, that there's absolutely no excuse for child marriage, and there won't be child marriage in Washington. So if you could ever think, okay, what can I do? What is something that I can do right now? As I said, I've got these stats that are awful, but we can change them. One of the greatest things you can do is join Zonta. You have the opportunity right here, right now to join this club and truly make a difference.
Yes.
This is happening now because of Zonta. This is happening right now because of the Zonta Club of Joliet. So you're getting all these resources. You're getting all of this great knowledge because of Zonta. So if you're asking yourself, okay, this is great information, what do I do next? If you're not a member, now's the time to join. And if you can't join, you can also become a supporting member, or you can also donate. It's one of those things. We need your time. We need your money to actually make change. So if you can't give us our time, we could take your money too.
That's right. Go to good use.
Me next?
Yes.
In law enforcement, you often don't get to see the end result, and you always hope that you're making an impact somehow, some way. Personally, about 5 months ago, I was up visiting my father, who's in a nursing home. And one of his aides asked me, could I speak with you outside? I said, sure, thinking, okay, something's going on with my father. So I prepare myself. I go outside and she says, Sherry Blackburn? I said, yes. And she said, you don't remember me, do you? And I said, no. So in about 2007, I was working an undercover assignment for several years. I encountered this individual. There was a drug investigation that was going on. And she said that when I encountered her and had to work through the court process with her, how I interacted with her, how I gave her advice, how I explained to her how she could do better for herself. She said changed her life. She ended up leaving that life, realized she was 30, could do much better. She ended up going back to school. She got her CNA license. She's a proud grandparent. It made me feel good that just that one, I'd encountered her a couple different times, but just treating somebody, being kind, and not judging somebody. You don't know what they've gone through in their life. And I didn't judge because I didn't know her. I just knew of the investigation, but just being kind and being respectful and treating her with dignity, it made a difference. So
That's great. We just have a few minutes left. We're gonna open the floor here for our audience to ask any questions. Pat is standing by with the mic. Just raise your hand and let her know if you have a question. I know our panel has just been so thorough. And they're so awesome. I think we do have a question. Say your name, please.
Keith Winfrey. And my question, it's like two parts. Hopefully, Dr. Ma, if you can answer this. I know I've done a lot of work in healthcare and working with even your medical director to try to look at human trafficking. What can we do? Like healthcare centers and working with Alliance Chicago, looking at healthcare centers. How do we identify these people? Because a lot of times when you come into the health center for a reason, should we be training our clinicians on how to identify people that are involved in sex trafficking and also in our schools? So that's one part of the question. How can we help and partner with different groups to make this happen? And what's happening with the migrant population? Because I know they are one of the most vulnerable groups.
Thank you for the question. With regard to the first piece, let me answer the second piece because that's a little easier for me to answer quickly. With regard to the migrant population, we actually have some of our staff go down to feed the migrant population, the migrants who are in Chicago on Monday, and so have a lot of encounters. And what they're seeing is a lot of girls who are frankly like literally have signs up selling themselves. And so they're anywhere you see vulnerable populations, certainly migrants are vulnerable populations. Unfortunately, there are people in this world who will take advantage of that. And so that is they are very vulnerable. We just had a little kiddo at our house recently who was one of the migrants who has become a ward of a particular state and was trafficked over here, then to Illinois and brought to our home just this past few days. So very, very vulnerable. I forgot the first. Healthcare. So yes, absolutely. Dr. Lowe is working with you to be able to get the healthcare people, providers to understand the signs, as well as educators to understand the signs. We're very passionate about that. We have signage that actually is supposed to go up in emergency rooms that provides people with access to our 24-hour hotline so that we can respond and we can work and partner in collaboration with our healthcare partners if there's a victim that's identified. But what I also always tell healthcare providers is that it's very much, we have to think of this as a long game, and this is where we can all participate in this and become part of the solution. Because one of our girls, she told us that she went to the hospital, the nurse identified all the signs in her. She actually wasn't with her trafficker, so it wasn't like she was afraid of him. But one of the things that happens is a lot of our survivors are in a chronic fear state. And so she couldn't even identify in herself when the nurse asked the appropriate question, are you afraid? That she couldn't even answer yes, even though later talking about it, she was very much afraid, and she had done some things, pretty dramatic things, to try to leave this person. But she was just so used to that state of being, so she wouldn't have been able to make the outcry or the disclosure at that point in time. But one of the things we can do, and this goes to what Deputy Chief, you were saying, that we can all do, is those moments of kindness that people will always remember that in their moment of pain, their moment of crisis. They might not be able to articulate or let you know that they need help, but they will remember the people who are kind to them. And so we do a lot of things with, like, giving out a hotline bracelet. We have a bracelet that has our hotline number on it that's disguised to healthcare providers and partners of ours, so that they can give that number out, so that when that person is ready to make that outcry and that disclosure, or when they're ready, with like domestic violence, when they're ready to be able to get that help, they have a lifeline, because they remember that kind person who is in the emergency room, who talked to them kindly, that kind police officer who was kind to them. These are the ways that we can all participate in being sort of the kind people and compassionate people in our communities. When we encounter people that we have no idea, like somebody said earlier, we have no idea what your stories are, what all of our stories are, what our days are going like. But if you'll always remember those kind people who are, that kind person who can make all the difference in the world.
All right, great. Another question?
Just wanting to expound what you're talking about in the schools. What can we do in the schools? Every year, we're educated on truckers against trafficking. And a big component of that is seen visually. When you're picking that child up, look at that child, notice the changes in that child, notice the people around that child when you go pick them up, notice anything that's off and report it right away. And every year, I love that we constantly get that education. We actually have cards that we carry around with us, keeping our cars, keeping our buses, keeping our trucks. Truckers have been phenomenal in catching trafficking in the actions and constantly educating on the school levels with your buses, your teachers, everybody in the facility. For us, it's a requirement because we're dealing with it every day. But really having that education constantly and reporting it right away. And if you're wrong, okay, you're wrong. But I'd rather be wrong 1,000 times and not say something at one time when I'm right. So that constant education and really paying attention to your children, the differences in your children. When you have a child that goes through being talkative, communicative, and they're closing down, talk to that child, even if it's for a second. Like Doctor said, being nice, acts of kindness that opens them up, and they'll start to talk to you.
I don't know if that's working. I'm here on behalf of Reclaim 13. I wanted to just bring also a continued awareness that we are working with the Illinois State Board of Education Chief of Staff, who is strongly pushing educating our administrators, our teachers, our school counselors, and nurses so that we're not running away from what we believe to be a abduction problem. Many of our students are being trafficked coming to school, leaving, going home, and coming back to school because they are meeting their traffickers online, on social media. There are many children that are being trafficked. We've had an incident with someone who was abused in the Yorktown Mall bathroom, met a trafficker on social media. She was an 11-year-old who was abused or raped in the bathroom at Yorktown Mall this past December. So it's a goal of our chief of staff of the Board of Education that's now in place to bring awareness to educators. So we spent last year, I had the opportunity to go to the leadership of Illinois and train. We had a class. The first class, everybody kind of shied away from because they're thinking, oh, that doesn't happen. That's a taken movie thing. Once we finished doing some education, the second class was filled with superintendents and principals who are starting to understand this is not an international trading problem. This is happening in all of our communities, and we need to be aware of the signs. The same thing with Dr. Lowe. She is instituting protocols to train nurses and clinicians in the urgent care centers to make sure they know from the secretary to the physician what are the signs of a child that is being trafficked. And she's creating protocols because they look a little different from a child that's been abused and a child that's being trafficked. Although they have the same umbrella, we have different signs of a trafficked child. And so we really want to bring awareness in this day so that parents in the community, like she said, it's better to call the police and to just say, oh, made a bad call, versus walking past someone in Walmart in the middle of the day and you're seeing 3 different children with someone and they should be in school, and we don't question why are they with an adult that doesn't look anything like them and they're telling that child to go here and there. So we have to be more aware. We have to keep our eyes open and know that Illinois is taking great measures with the education system to help inform social workers, counselors, nurses, and principals so that we can stop this.
Another question over here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sandra Aguirre. I'm a board member of District 86. When I ran for to be a board member, it was because my child was being bullied. He attended District 86. I started from my house. I started with my child. I started educating my son that whatever, whoever, and anything that is happening, you have to come home and tell me. I started taking action in the name of Lord Jesus. It worked because I went directly to whomever it was the highest administrator. And as a parent, you have to start from your kids too. You have to start telling them, don't be afraid to speak up. And always, always say, if you see something wrong with, even not just with your kid, with your friends, with your, not just in school, with the friends that you're standing there for the bus. If you see anything, say something, always. And about the bus drivers, I have a best friend right here. Same thing. In my corner of my house is about 10 kids that are waiting for the bus. As a neighbor, as a watch neighbor, I'm looking at who's stopping, who's taking those kids right there. And if I have the time, if I don't, there's other neighbors that we all talking to each other. Hey, did you see this? Oh no, we have to take care of each other. Look at your surroundings, not just your kid, not just the school, but everywhere. Bullying is horrible. And we are not going to accept that. So as a board member, I am working very hard, not just in the board, but everywhere in my community and everywhere where I go. And if I don't see something right, I say something.
It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to applaud our panelists and say, you are truly awesome. Truly, truly awesome. Great information. Oh my goodness. Fantastic information. In closing, I just want you to look in the audience out there. I'm just going to ask you for like a closing remark to say something you live by or something that's important to you briefly. And for us to just extend those words out to our audience. Mine would be to be excellent. Start with you, Sherry.
To be compassionate and pursue your dreams.
Yeah.
To be kind.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with those great words. All I would add to that is just connect with each other in whatever way that makes sense for you. Be there with each other.
I have to say mine is also to be kind.
We have a saying, it's actually taken from the Bible, love conquers all fear.
Be supportive and compassionate to each other.
Speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves.
It's awesome. That's what this panel has been all about. Well, and speaking of the panel, I just want to say that we just want to, I mean, we wish we had $1 million to give you, but we don't. So we just want to let you know how great we feel about you here at the Zonta Club of Joliet. So what we're going to do is present you. Today is Yellow Roses Day, and we have, oh, you see it over here. We have a certificate too that we also want to give you. And first up would be Trisha McKenna. Certificate of Appreciation and Grateful Recognition. We present this certificate to Trisha H. McKenna, Assistant State's Attorney, Will County, Zonta Club of Joliet Area inaugural Internal Women's Day panel, March 8th, 2024. I want to just get this picture with you. Thank you. Dr. Cassandra Ma. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And it's the same information there. And thank you so much. Over there, and let's get a shot together. Thank you. Senator Meg Laughlin Kapow. Thank you for all what you do as well. Thank you. Yeah. Is that good? Okay. Thank you. Zoe Fisher. Betty Major Rose. Kate Edrin. Thank you. And last but not least, Sherry Blackburn, Deputy Chief, Joliet Police Department. Wow. Let's give them all a hand. Oh, wow. This has been such a fantastic time and opportunity, and I have so many people to thank. And I just want to thank the entire Zonta Club of Joliet. Ladies, please stand. Zonta Club of Joliet. Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure and opportunity to work with these ladies because these ladies are very serious about the issues at hand, and they're not just talking, they're doing something about it. And that's what I love. And they're spreading love all over the area. So it's amazing. I also want to thank organizers along with me, Pat Perrier. Been fantastic. And Lisa's back there in the back, Lisa Pappas. Please give that wonderful woman a hand clap as well as this one. They have been wonderful. Special thanks to, where's Beth at? Beth Culva. There she is. She's done a lot of the printing and donated a lot of it. And thank you so much, Beth. Rainey Tracy, she helped get our food together. Thank you so much. Yeah, our food for our panelists. Thank you so much. JCTV, Dick and Millie Schuster. And our other technician, Kaylin Winfrey. Kaylin. I want to also thank our photographer, Sydney Barrier, right here. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank all of you for coming out. I mean, it was raining and everything, and you still came. And I appreciate it. I appreciate all the students coming out. I appreciate the fact that if you're a student here at, I think it's Joliet Township High School, we have forms for community service for you. Oh, you have some in the back? Okay, Lisa has some in the back. I believe there were some students from other schools coming out. We want to recognize you too and just say thank you for coming. It's been really, really great. And everybody that came along with our panelists, we welcome you as well. And this has just been a great night. And we just hope everyone has learned something about how to be safe and to spread the word. Spread the word. It's great. We have another event coming up on the 21st of this month. And I believe Christine or Helen, one of you want to come forward and let everybody know what that is? Also, we have a resource table in the back over there to the left. There's a lot of information from our panelists. So please stop by and pick the information up. Thank you. Christine?
Hi, so this will be really brief. I know this has been a wonderful event, but I'm sure you all want to get home. So the Zonta Club of the Joliet area invites you to our Women's Film Festival. It is on March 21st at the Renaissance Center downtown. It starts at 4 p.m. with a Boss Up reception featuring entertainment. And then at 5:30, we head upstairs for dinner, wonderful conversation, and movies. So tickets are now on sale on Eventbrite, or you can go to our Zonta Club website, but we invite all of you to attend that. All proceeds benefit women in our community with scholarships through the Joliet Junior College Foundation. So it's a great event for a great cause. So we really encourage you all to attend that event. And Helen Hester Ross is here as well. She's the co-chair of the event. So if you have any questions, you can ask her. So thank you, Bonnie.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, as we close out, there's some flyers in the back about the event if you want to see those, as well as what I mentioned about resources from the panelists. Again, let's applaud our wonderful panelists. They're the best.